This is the harsh truth. If you are relying on your feelings on a day-to-day basis, you are inherently losing at life. That is the harsh reality. And let me explain why. When you let your feelings dictate your day-to-day actions, and by extension, any progress towards your goals, you are destroying the positive momentum in your life. And when it's not building, it's deteriorating. One of my peers said this best: one day missed is 2 days backward. In other words, if it's not positive momentum, it's negative momentum. And our feelings, when they don't translate to productive actions, are the greatest sparks for building negative momentum. By the way, I'm not just talking about those lesser emotions such as sadness or laziness, though those seem to be the most common detractors. Unused inspiration or motivation have the same effect. How many times have you watched an inspirational video? Right now, you're actually probably on your new year, new me type of mood with 2023 right around the corner, and you let all of that positive emotion well up inside you just to let it disperse into thin air. In another sense, I see that same thing happen to creatives all the time. In the moment they have a creative light bulb just go off in their head, they share it with a few people, but then they never write that idea down, only to lose it to past time. That deep creativity vanishes almost instantly. And what you don't realize is that every time you've done that, you've subconsciously proven to yourself time and time again that you are not as committed to your goals, to your endeavors, or even your life as much as you thought you were. Are you really going to let that premise decide the trajectory of your life? Forget even that. You're probably already letting it decide how your day-to-day goes by. One of the greatest examples of this in my own life was the time I lost to sleeping through high school and college. I lost 8 years or so of momentum to sleeping because I wanted to pass the time, as I believed that there just wasn't anything better to do, or simply to procrastination in different forms. Now, that doesn't mean I look back at it with absolute regret or kill myself internally over it, but I objectively understand that I wasted a huge chunk of my life up until this point. I did not partake in the experiences that truly interested me. I did not learn certain lessons that I should have at those ages. I did not find purpose in living in the moment and looking to the future. I have only been going to the gym for about 9 months now, and within that time frame, I have jumped from 130 pounds to 160 pounds, mostly muscle, and I'm continuing to build a physique that I'm becoming more and more proud of. Imagine what my physique would have looked like, or how proud of myself that I would have been if I had started 8 years ago in high school, or even just 3 to 4 years ago in college. Imagine how proud you would have been. And that applies to any other endeavor that you wanted to pursue. Most of my life at the time was struck by a deep emptiness, a lack of purpose. There wasn't much order in my life, and I definitely didn't seem to have much control over it. Now that 8 years of negative momentum affects the run rate of my life today. And although I've sorted my life out more than ever, better day-to-day habits, ever-increasing productivity, self-improvement, etc., I still feel as if I'm playing catch-up this whole time. It seems as if there's a certain lag in my life that I'm trying to make up for. It's as if I incurred a debt over those 8 years, and I'm very much trying to pay myself back. Don't get me wrong, I'm feeling more and more fulfilled with every passing day. Life just keeps getting better, but only because I don't allow my feelings to dictate the majority of the actions that I take on any given day. Actually, on any given day, no matter how I feel, if productive action was taken, I will come out of that day not feeling bad about anything in any sense. On top of that, I come out of it feeling more and more confident in my abilities and proud of my building character because I know I'm doing more than the next person over. Kobe Bryant explained this best, this idea of the compounding effect, this idea of building positive momentum and how far that sets you apart from the next person over relative to his ambition of becoming the best basketball player in history.
Right now, imagine you wake up at 3, you train at 4, you go 4 to 6, come home, breakfast, relax, blah, blah, blah. Now you're back at it again, 9 to 11, right? You relax, and now all of a sudden you're back at it again, 2 to 4, and now you're back at it again, 7 to 9. Look how much more training I have done by simply starting at 4, right? And so now you do that, and as the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger and larger and larger and larger, and by year 5 or 6, doesn't matter what kind of work they do in the summer, they're never going to catch up.
That positive momentum, that length you've created ahead of your peers, ahead of your competitors, and even ahead of who you were just a few days/years ago comes independent of feelings. It comes from competence that overrides how you feel on a day-to-day basis by action founded in principle. Which leads me to my next point. How can you overcome this reliance on your feelings? My answer to that is by replacing your motive for action from feelings to principles. Create non-negotiables for yourself rooted in the morals of the person that you want to become. You will now take action not because of how you feel, that's how you feel right now in that moment, but rather because it's in your moral character to do so. Your actions are guided by your principles. So take the time to sit down with a piece of paper and pen and write down every single character trait that the most exceptional version of you would have. Then compile the top 3 to 5 of those principles and implement them as a non-negotiable in your day-to-day life. Once you've internalized those, pick the next 3 to 5 and continue to repeat the cycle. A few things from my list are speaking less than necessary with a focus on listening, constantly learning and self-educating direct to my current position in life relative to the goals that I want to achieve, and being able to authentically approach and speak to anyone at will. Now, every time those situations relative to those principles appears in your day-to-day life, have the self-awareness to act upon them. I mentioned one of mine was being able to authentically approach and speak to anyone at will. A few weeks ago, I was at the gym. I had just finished my workout and I was cooling off while decompressing my spine. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl, and the thought that I should cold approach her ran across my mind. Mind you, I wasn't particularly attracted to her, nor was I suddenly locked in on her, but simply because the thought had crossed my mind. And although approaching a girl can be absolutely terrifying in any context, I made my way over. I started quick little conversations, asked to take her out, and got rejected. But the interesting thing was, I walked away feeling insanely good about myself. After that rejection, I particularly remember that day going extremely well. In the few moments that I had before I approached her, I very much could have given into those negative feelings, those negative thoughts such as, oh, I'm not even attracted to her, or she's in the middle of the workout, I'm probably bothering her, or some garbage like that. But because I let my principles dictate my actions, I came out feeling invigorated, even though the result of that interaction was a rejection. The underlying message of that interaction was to exemplify how operating from a frame of principles develops your emotional competence, your emotional discipline, your ability to do the hard work even when you don't want to, despite your state of mind. The book, The First 20 Hours by Josh Kaufman, dissects the process of rapid skill acquisition. And on the first page, he speaks to something that deeply resonated with me from a multitude of perspectives. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The most rewarding experiences in life almost always require some level of skill. He then goes on to talk about the frustration barrier that most people fall victim to when it comes to learning something new. But it all comes back to the same notions. Set non-negotiable parameters for a certain period of time, with your feelings only being natural secondary effects. Once you've completed your designated commitment, regardless of how you feel, you will have achieved something to a competent degree, usually resulting anyways in a net positive array of emotions, reaffirming the very raw and real truth that your feelings are often simply barriers to actualizing your potential, or in Kaufman's case, competent acquisition of any skill within the first 20 hours. This applies to the idea of operating from a framework of principles as well. Try enacting your principles at least 10 conscious times over the next few weeks, and I promise you, you will never want to go back to who you were. Your principles, which are modeled after the most ideal version of yourself, are inherently filled with so much positive momentum for you to capitalize on. So take absolute advantage of that. It's right in front of you and it will change your life. Now, one concept that is extremely beneficial for you to understand if you want to optimize or speed up the process of overcoming your emotional reliance is the idea of dopamine intoxication. No, not dopamine detox. I mean dopamine intoxication. I'm sure you've come across videos like, I did a dopamine detox for 7 days and it's no social media, no video games, no sleeping in late, etc. But that's only one side of the coin. You can detox all you want, but if you don't intoxicate yourself with something else, you're likely to revert back into your old ways fairly quickly. The majority of people allow their dopamine receptors to fire off because of instant gratification on social media, junk food, etc. But the hack is to let that same dopamine system fire off, but instead for a sense of accomplishment. Our brains enjoy short-term goals. So in the same way that you get that quick satisfaction from, let's say, a like on Instagram, you can replicate that in a beneficial way by setting daily goalposts throughout your day relative to a long-term goal that you have a deep-rooted desire for. For example, let's say that you want an incredible physique. Outside of the massive hits of dopamine that you'll get from killing it at the gym 3 days out of the week, no days missed, on your off days, you do 20 push-ups every hour. Every single time that you accomplish that, every single time that you even surpass that minimum threshold or notice your efforts showing results in the mirror, you are going to be firing off those same dopamine receptors. And on top of that, you are conditioning your dopamine system to react particularly to a habit that only benefits you. You are forcing addiction to work in your favor. Take a minute to think about how powerful that is. Think about how much extra positive momentum you are creating for yourself outside of self-discipline because you have reinforced your mind to react strongly to the motions that are going to change the trajectory of your life immensely for the better. Now apply that dopamine intoxication to any long-term goal that you might have by deconstructing it down into daily accomplishments, and you will have exponentially increased your chances of success. You will have increased your ability to stay disciplined over a long period of time, and by extension, your ability to surpass any influence your emotions might have on you during any situation. By the way, I'd like to make this extremely clear. Overcoming your reliance on your feelings does not mean that you do not face them. It simply means that you're able to come to terms with them. You analyze how and why you truly feel about whatever it is that's occurring. Accept it, but then continue to do what you know you must do or have committed to anyways. You've deeply come to understand that your feelings are temporary while your mission requires consistency. The reason why operating from a framework of principles is so effective is because there is a permanence to them in your character. But other than that, subscribe, I'd love to have you. And to those of us that refuse to fall victim to our emotional reliances, that choose consistent improvement over temporary impediments, it's time to skyrocket.